What do all the arcs, barring Dawn of the Clans, have in common? Well, a lot of things, actually. Seeing as the qualifier I mentioned was barring Dawn of the Clans, you could say any element of modern clan culture and be right. Granted, you can't say SkyClan is there, or the clans live in the Lake Territories, or Firestar is leader, but generally you were probably correct. But I'm thinking of a specific element. Barring Dawn of the Clans, every single arc starts with at least one apprentice or soon-to-be apprentice. I am so bored of this. Not the characters being apprentices, or even later middling books where they're still apprentices, but specifically the first book, the introductory period. The why here is obvious. They want to present a child's character for the audience to relate to. Clearly, or maybe not so clearly if you're new here, I am not a child. Warrior Cats came out when I was about 10, and I've been reading it since I was 12, and for well over half my life at this point. So I understand I'm not the demographic of these books, and I'm definitely not the demographic for this concept, but me being tired of this has very little to do with the concept itself. It's entirely the execution. I feel like there's one book that unquestionably does starting with apprenticeship right, and that's Into the Wild. And you might cry, oh no, Into the Wild is weird, Into the Wild isn't actually that great, but I'm not talking about the quality or consistency or even the feel of the book, and consistency is kind of overrated in this series at this point anyways. I'm talking about how Rusty and later Firepaw's introduction to ThunderClan and clan life is handled. Firepaw learns about clan customs, about their culture and their way of life, in a way that gives the reader a sense of understanding. He learns about things that are interesting to new readers, and is introduced to the personalities and relationships reflected in the people around him. Largely, it's because this is all new to him. He wasn't born in the clans and doesn't know the people here. And most importantly, while they do exist, it doesn't spend every waking moment of his life explaining what chore he's currently performing. So my question is, why is it that when we are presented with the lives of new apprentices in every arc, that we never see them learning about culture, clan structure, or the traits of the people around them? Instead, I feel like the apprentices usually get tasked with busy work and page-filling exercises that don't actually result in much, if any, plot development. I don't see why practice, patrols, and hunting take up so many pages, when they're all largely mindless jobs for characters to fulfill. Their days are so full, too, that it almost seems like our characters, our warrior cats, they don't have time to relax, talk, or learn about the clan they're living in, because relaxing, talking, and learning is hardly focused on compared to the much less interesting jobs they gotta do every day. Reading from the perspective of a child in Warrior Cats feels like going to school or work, and not really in a good way. The Medicine Cats specifically have their own set of problems. In theory, there are all sorts of commitments that a Medicine Cat needs to make. There are all sorts of sacrifices that a Medicine Cat needs to make. And these things are never really focused on in any detail until it's too late. As an apprentice, it's just herb memorizing, herb gathering, receiving cryptic prophecies that don't matter because the cats don't even act on prophecies or listen to them when you tell them about them, and they very frequently keep them to themselves anyways. Generally, the entire life of a Medicine Cat apprentice in recent books is trying to tell people things and having them either ignore you or completely misinterpret what you're trying to tell them. But at the very least, filling pages with sick cats and whatever ailment is going through your clan at that time is a lot more interesting than filling pages with hunting practice. And people in the life of a post-first arc apprentice barely exist. They're mentioned briefly. If a cat gets more than a couple sentences describing them, they're lucky. If you started with the apprentice's quest, for example, you would gather that Purdy is an elder, but you would be left wondering to yourself why there even is a cat named Purdy. And to be fair here, there are like 60 cats in ThunderClan. I don't expect it to tell me about every single one of them. But who do we know about? Important people like the leader, the deputy, and the medicine cats, and then personal people like their mentor and usually their siblings. Maybe the other apprentices if you're lucky, a coin toss if or not the cat's parents are included whatsoever. But especially in a clan with so many cats, there should be other important people in a person's life who aren't their leader or directly related to them. And while some characters in First Arc ThunderClan, mostly the non-important she-cats, are kind of strangers to Firepaw, we know almost everybody in the clan. We know where they stand on things. We get to see that through the dialogue and the interactions that Firepaw has with them. But back to the point. We start with Apprentices as if they're going to give us an introduction to the Warrior Cat's world. Most arcs are advertised as a good starting point, when they're not. They're just not. If you've never read a Warrior Cats book before, there's two especially bad arcs to start from. The first being Omen of the Stars, who is relying super heavily on you having already read Power of Three for all of its character drama. It tries to sum it up, but you're not really going to care. The second really terrible arc to start from would be the current one. There's 3 main protagonists, all from different clans, which is already giving you a head start on not connecting emotionally with any of their environments or experience, as every cat gets less screen time. But the arc goes into absolute chaos really fast, because StarClan isn't there. There isn't time or information allotted to learn about the Warrior Cat status quo. And I'm saying this from the perspective of somebody who thinks that the first 3 books of the Broken Code are really, really good. In my opinion, better than almost any first 3 books that the post-Vicky writing team has put out so far in terms of plot and interest. It's just not a good jumping point for Warrior Cats. Only the first arc is. When was the last time a book sat down to just explain every clan in any level of detail? We have the apprentices learn to recognize their smells and territories, but what is going to make us care about a group we only know based on their smell and diet? For example, in the Apprentices quest, we learn where WindClan lives. We learn what they look like, physically, compared to ThunderClan cats, a courtesy not really given to the other 2 clans. It's quote-unquote thinner than most of his clanmates, with long legs and wiry, muscular bodies, in case you were wondering. But most of the information we get on who WindClan actually is a sour opinion from Needlepaw, calling them cowards. And the rude opinions of Needlepaw and Sleekpaw in the Apprentice's quest are actually extremely helpful for understanding the Warrior Cat's world, but not really in the way that I want. After reading arc after arc after arc of Warrior Cats, you will have a pretty good idea of how clans interact with each other and how clans are to the extent that the writing team has developed them. But you're not going to get that from the Apprentice perspective. You're not going to get that from a first book. And I think part of the problem here might just be that there's a lack of things for the characters to learn. I don't think that the clans are actually planned out culturally, so there's no actual differing culture for the apprentices to hear or know about beyond ShadowClan is sneaky, RiverClan is fat, 2 things that may or may not actually be true. Granted, the latter because we haven't had a modern RiverClan perspective ever. We've had super editions that take place in every other clan, that's at least in the post-Omen of the Stars era, but just nothing. Nothing in modern RiverClan at all. We have no idea what goes on in there. I really hope that Frostpaw's perspective going forward with the Starless Clan and River, we get an opportunity to see not only what RiverClan is, but also who it is, and also to hopefully skip over 2 terribly many herb lessons. If they remember that bit about RiverClan decorating dens with shells, I'll give Aaron Hunter a kiss. But my real issue is here. If we are being introduced to the world through the eyes of a child, we should be given the information that a child would actually receive, not just a collection of assumptions that we already know what is going on. I think a little bit more exposition and character interaction would go a lot farther in immersing people in the Warrior Cats universe than checking the elders for ticks while they do nothing but say, "Ouch, oof, my aching bones."